Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to a Christmas edition of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Still in that dead period, that off season of MMA. We get 3 weeks. I wish it was no weeks, truth be told. Yeah. But, you know, we have 3 weeks. So we're going to have a fun episode on tap for you guys today. You know, as I have little kids who are so excited for Christmas right now, they give me their wish list. So I made a call to my esteemed colleague, John Morgan. I said, let's make a Christmas wish list. A wish list of what we want, what fights we want to see for Christmas. Now, they may never happen. There's some wild ones on here. But if we were fantasy booking, what could we do? Let's get it started. I'll bring in the man. His name is on the marquee. You can find him on X, John Morgan _MMA. John, what's up, pal? Merry Christmas, first off.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Like you said, I know we're both parents, so that's always fun to see the kids and the holidays. My wife's got her parents coming in town, so the in-laws are coming. So good times all around. Like you said, with a couple weeks of downtime, truth be told, you and I both would rather just have fights every weekend. And I do actually have some submission grappling this weekend, but we'll enjoy the little off season. We'll enjoy the downtime, enjoy the family time. And we put this list together. Now, want to make it clear on this list, you know, I think we started with some that make some sense, you know, that might happen. You know, that probably will happen. And then I think we both threw in some that might never happen, but hey, as long as we're just talking to Santa Claus about what he might be able to put together, let's put together some little fantasy matchups as well.
Well, who knows? They may all come happen. Like, I have an elf on the shelf at home. I've been a very good guy. He's reporting back to Santa. I got a funny story. So, like, typically elf. So your son's a little bit older. So,
right.
Did you ever do Elf on the Shelf?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay. So usually Elf on the Shelf, the rules are supposed to come like December 1st, right?
Right.
So the elf at my house, Zippy, Elf Zippy, he is an extra special elf. He is one of in the inner circle with Santa. Like, he is in the inner circle. So he couldn't come to Memphis, Tennessee at the beginning of December because he's Santa's extra special. He's part of his council. He's busy. Santa relies on him. So he couldn't even come until like 5 days before Christmas.
Interesting.
So our elf, because he's extra special, comes only a week early.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I didn't know that you could get access to VIP elves like that. Had I done that, I might have tried to grease the wheels a little bit so that, you know, the elf, not that I minded the elf being here all month monitoring everything, but, you know, just a couple of days of monitoring might have been a little bit more convenient for the parents and the family as a whole. Now that I know, that's a great message to send out there to parents around the world. Don't just settle for a normal elf. You can, if you're the right kind of guy, a guy like Eric McMahon, you can kind of talk to some people and you can get a VIP elf that, you know, maybe around a little bit less than the normal elf.
I mean, he's on the booking committee.
I love it. I love it. Well, since he is VIP like that, then maybe he can go talk to the UFC matchmakers on his way back to the North Pole and, you know, kind of relay some of these messages about what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, we're going to basically do Maynard's job and Shelby's job today. All right. So just
let me say off the top one that already got done. I'm just saying, I got to give credit to McMahon on this one. Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape probably would have been on my list. I just interviewed Manel Kape for Grind City.
We talked about that last week.
What a great fight. It sounds like it's going to be a main event on March 1st. It's not all officially announced yet, but I mean, both parties are talking about it. And it's a fight that it makes sense. So, you know what? Maybe they are listening to us. I mean, that was on our list.
I read that it was going to be in the Apex too, right?
Right. Correct.
So just think about this. Smaller cage too.
Oh, man. That's right.
Now, a lot of the Apex gets shitted on a lot. I don't know why. Like, I understand they put maybe, you know, the lesser known, let's say that, the lesser known. But I think if you get great fights in a smaller cage I don't subscribe to the theory of like, because it's in the Apex, it's not good. I don't subscribe to that.
No, not at all. You know, look, I'll always say I love the Apex because it's 15 minutes from my house. That makes things very convenient when I can drive there and back very easily, right? But man, you get the right fights in there. Like you said, that smaller cage, you know, it does create more engagement. It just does. There's less real estate to work with, so it creates more engagement. And if you have the right fights in there, the atmosphere does get pretty rowdy. You know what I mean? Like the people that are attending, depending on who's in the audience as well, they can get pretty rowdy. And it's fun, man, being right up on it. And man, I love in those smaller environments, like hearing the coaches, because it's so much clearer. Sometimes in the arenas, man, it's so loud from, because there's so many fans, you can't hear it. I love hearing those little coaching battles that are going back and forth, and the judge, the things that are being said by the coaches that are clearly trying to influence the judges a little bit, and the advice that's being given, the adjustments that are being made on the fly. So I dig it. And look, I love that fight. Royval top. Yep.
Light bulb just went off. I think the reason me and you are just big fans of the Apex is we have both watched fights in the Apex. Like, not probably a lot of people get to do that. So the fact that I've been there, I'm probably 10 occasions now.
Yeah.
And the intimacy of it, the sounds of it, everything makes it unique and different. That light bulb. That's why I think me and you are huge fans of the Apex, because
that's
it's like
a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, that is actually a great point. Most people that have attended events there don't complain about it. You know what I mean? And again, not that you're ever going to say, like, I don't like packed arenas. I'm not a fan of Madison Square Garden. I only like the Apex. No, it's a different presentation. It's a different environment, and one that I find very enjoyable as well. Of course, I love the big arenas and the erupting moments and the crowd all oohing and awing together, but there's kind of an intimacy to it that's pretty cool fighting at the Apex, and I love this fight. Brandon Royval, Manel Kape, man, two of the most talented, dynamic, exciting flyweights. So, hey, man, we might as well put this list together. We're already getting some of our fights booked, right?
Well, with that being said, I need to remove one from my list.
Uh-oh. What happened? Was that on it? What are we crossing off? It was on there? I'm telling you, it would have been on my if it wasn't.
We said it last week that's a fight 100%. That we like. If Royval is not going to get the next shot because Pantoja needs to take some time out, whatever. This is the fight to make. It got made. And listen, we want to talk about two dudes who are about that life. These are two dudes that are about that life. Both of these guys do not put on boring performances.
The tweet that I had when I saw it, because the first report I saw it, I just had to retweet the report, and I was like, two absolute gangsters. Like, these dudes are about that life, man. They're going to chat a little bit. There's going to be some talking building up to it. I bet they'll be talking while the fight's going on, and it'll be pure excitement, aggression. I mean, those are just two of the absolute most exciting dudes in the flyweight division. So I love that matchup. And yeah, had it not been officially announced, it would have. Well, I guess it hasn't been officially announced. But had it not been reported, it definitely would have been on my list.
Officially announcing it. The camps have announced it though.
They're saying it, so it's happening. That's gonna be a phenomenal fight. One that I just wanted to give a little shine and attention to, because like you said, it's a down period and there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on. I want to make sure that one got noticed, because that's a hell of a fight.
And it's kind of interesting that it was made not 2 weeks after he fought. So it's very quick. Now, the turnaround time might not be, we've seen a lot sooner. It's a good 3-4 month stretch in between, which these guys want to stay active. But the announcement, or leaked announcement right away, is a little unique.
I think when you have it like that, it goes to show me the excitement that even the matchmakers have for it, right? Where it's like, oh, I know the fight to make. It's not like, well, we got to get in the matchmaking room and we got to talk about it. We got to see what options. We talk a lot about, well, who's available, because timeline means something. Where is it going to be? Are there geographic tie-ins that we need to utilize to sell tickets, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, when it happens this fast, that McMahon saw that latest win by Kape and was like, oh, I know the fight to make, man. I know the fight to make. So that was a great one on his end. I actually reached out to him after that one. I was like, bro, I know you make a lot of fights, but that one gave me all the feels right there. That's phenomenal matchmaking.
Pretty awesome. So let's go through some other awesome options that can be out there. And they're options. They're not even these, again, disclaimer, these are fights that will never happen, or there's fights that they could happen. And there's fights that, ranking wise doesn't make sense, but we're fans first. So we'd like to see it if rankings and titles and things didn't now weight classes do matter. So, right. So we kept it weight classes or within a margin of error of guys up and down. Right.
Yeah. Nothing crazy fantasy. Like, I want to see this bantamweight fight this heavyweight. Like, come on, that doesn't make sense. They don't even let you do that in the UFC video game because it's so unrealistic. So yeah, we try to keep it realistic to a degree.
So I want to start with the most probable, right? So let's start there. There's a good way of what is the most probable? Let's go most probable ones that we think will just be unbelievable bangers, and then ones that probably won't happen, but if they did, they would be pretty freaking awesome. Is that a good way to do this?
I think that's a great way to start. And to me, you got to start with Jon Jones, right? Because that's the guy we're talking about right now. I mean, the greatest of all time, in my opinion, and the one with the most questions about it. You know, garner the headlines all year long. If you're putting together a wish list of fights that you want to see, you got to start with Jon Jones, right? And I'm a little torn on this one, man, because and I want you to help me on this because
you should see my list. It says or. Mine says
okay,
or.
All right. Okay, that's all because look, that mine says or, right? Or maybe mine says and. Maybe it doesn't even say or. Maybe it says and because there's two ways of looking at this for me, right? Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, of course, off the top. That's the fight that everybody's talking about. And if you're talking about most logical, it is the fight that makes the most sense. You have the reigning champion, the reigning interim champion. What happens 99.9% of the time in situations like that? You unify the titles for an undisputed title holder. That's what you like to see. It's logical. It makes sense, right? And we know it's the fight that Tom Aspinall is pushing for. It's the fight that Dana White has said he guarantees is going to happen. I'm kind of interested to see, why he feels so confident in that.
I had that on my list of what to ask you that question. So can I ask it right now?
As to why he's so confident?
Yeah. Is it that like they are going to throw crazy money and he just knows Jon Jones and he's already had the conversation, or is it I'm going to apply pressure in the media now?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? If I'm guessing. Now, I will say I have put in an interview request to speak with Dana White at the start of the new year. Don't know if it'll be granted or not, but I figured, hey, let's try to kick off 2025. If so, I will certainly ask him that question. But if we are just supposing and guessing, I would say both. Number one, I think they saw leading into Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic how much people were talking about Tom Aspinall and how much Tom Aspinall is a great promoter and a great partner, right? And wants to make this happen. So I think they're like, number one, we want this fight to happen. We know it'll be a marquee event for us. So let's, we'll pay what we have to pay. We've worked with Jon Jones for over a decade. We know how to do business with him. We know what it's going to take. But then we know
what makes him tick.
Exactly. That's what I say. You know exactly how you get him to make the decisions that you need to make. But so I think that it's a little bit of column A and column B so that they know that they'll do what it takes to get it done. And yes, they will start applying a little bit of pressure. Dana White's good at that, right? Now, Dana White, he says things. He's very purposeful in the way he states things, the way he says things, and the way he does interviews, right? There's a meaning behind the way he handles things. As much as it may be off the cuff, it's also well thought out as well in trying to get to that final goal. So there's a little bit of that. But hopefully we'll get to hear from Dana White himself into why he thinks it's 100%. So that's fight number one, and we understand it's logical. But then fight number two for Jon Jones, and that's why I say I don't know if it's or if it's and, because we've talked about this one as well. It's not as logical as that one, and I would understand Tom Aspinall would be incredibly upset and angered if this was the fight that happened next. But you and I have touched on it. I think the biggest fight in the sport right now is Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira moving up, going for that third divisional title, trying to set a record there. And, of course, now you've got that devastating knockout power against Jon Jones. And it's just, to me, those two guys are the biggest names in the sport right now. Jon Jones, the greatest of all time, but Alex Pereira has, over the last, 2 years or so, has just become this superstar, man. Shama, like everybody's saying it. The walk-ins are iconic. The guy doesn't even have to speak English to get people want to tune in and watch him. He's got an exciting style. So that for me with Jon Jones, I might need a little clarity there because I don't know if it's an or if it's an and. If I could see them both, I would love to. If I could see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall at International Fight Week and then Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira in December of next year to close out the year. I mean, or maybe, let me take that back, Madison Square Garden in November. I mean, that would be an incredible year for Jon Jones. And if for some reason,
didn't they hold like 4 of the top 6 gates at MSG? Now they're going to hold 4 of the top 5 of the top 7.
That would absolutely break it. So I would love to see that. That would be an incredible, phenomenal year. And then Jon Jones, there would just be no contesting whatsoever that he's the greatest of all time. You don't even discuss it.
Well, okay. So now there's a couple questions that I need to ask within there.
All right.
I would say Would you consider me and you hardcore fans, or would you consider us more on like I think hardcore purist, or how would you, well, let's say this. How would you classify me and you? Now take our history of being in the business out of it,
Right.
just from a fandom. How would you classify us?
I mean, we're both hardcore fans. So you take out our roles in the sport or whatever. At our core, we're hardcore fans. I just tweeted this morning a reminder somebody gave me of a clip on Fight Pass of me attending my first UFC event when I was 19 years old in 1998. Right, so that was the first time I ever. So I mean, this sport, I love the sport. I'm a hardcore fan, no doubt about it.
Okay, I agree. So this is where it becomes like, what does the UFC really do? Now, I think from a business perspective, they need to unify the title, right? I think they find a way that they need to unify the title. The common fan, right? So we're not the common fan.
Yes.
We are the hardcore fan. We watch everything. We know a lot about a lot, right? I think generally speaking, the hardcore fans want to see the Aspinall fight. But I think the common fan, they still don't know who Tom Aspinall is, in my opinion. Like from a pure name value, they've heard it out there. They heard people talking about him. But do you think they're really tuning into an interim title fight? If Jon Jones fell off the card and Stipe, no, I'm still going to buy it because we got this guy, Tom Aspinall, and I need to see what this is all about. I just don't think that's the case. So I think your hardcore fans want to see Aspinall for the simple fact of, can this new young blood lion, take his spot at in the throne? And I think your common fan, for everything you just said, the walkout, the name, he don't have to speak English to get over the hardcore knockouts that he has. I think the common fan wants to see Alex Pereira.
Yeah, I think you hit spot on and that's why I say, I didn't say that Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall is the biggest fight the UFC can make right now, right? And that's why, because what do you need for a fight to be big? What do you need for it to be massive? You need that casual buy-in, right? Like me and you. Hey, they got our $80 every month. You know what I mean? Like there's no that was locked in. You can count on those two buys. You're getting those two buys, right? But it's when you get the casuals to buy in that don't normally catch every. That's when you get the incremental increases in business. And I think Alex Pereira speaks to that more casual fan, that more common fan that's not as hardcore, that gets them talking and gets them interested and gets them saying, "Oh, I got to watch that guy on Saturday night." Okay, where am I going?
So next on that question, that's like segment 1 of segment 2 on this exact question, because Dana White has come out and said, this will be the biggest fight that we have ever put on. It will smash every record. It'll be the biggest fight. Him talking about Aspinall. And that could be true. But does that also make it true that it would be even bigger if it was Alex Pereira?
I think so. I think 100%.
So either way, either person would be the biggest. But if we're talking about what would be the bigger of the biggest, it would still be Alex Pereira.
I think so. I don't think Dana White would admit that to you, especially if you're trying to do Jones and Aspinall right now, because you wouldn't want to say, "Hey, we're putting on this fight and we're pretty excited about it, but there's another fight that we would be even more excited about, but we're not going to do it right now." You know what I mean? I don't think he would admit that to you. But I don't have the metrics, but just based on the activity and the interest that I see, I think Jones Pereira is bigger than Jones Aspinall. Although, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. I want to see Jones and Aspinall because I want to see the unification fight, because Aspinall has done everything he needs to, because he is the rightful guy right now, and I want to see if he's that next in line. So I started this off by saying
we got no clarity with Volkov just 2 weeks ago, and we got no clarity of who could be next. So there is no other option at the end of the day either.
That's right. Yeah, it was kind of what we joked about, right? Volkov, that situation. It's like, what just happened there? Jon Jones just said, guess you need me even more now, right? So, I mean, that all worked in his favor, and that's why I think. So, I started off saying it's and or. I know you had to have Jon Jones on your list. There's no way you didn't have Jon Jones on your list. So,
I'm going to add to it.
You're going to add to it? Okay. I was going to ask which one you had.
What do I want to see personally? I have always said that I want to see him versus Alex Bahia, just because I think the spectacle would be bigger. I think the fight would be better with Aspinall, though. I think there's more meaning to it. I do want to see Aspinall because I think Aspinall is going to be harder to take to the ground. He's going to be harder to hold down to the ground. He's going to be harder to submit on the ground. He's going to be harder to in the clinches to be able to be swept. This is a guy who's been training mixed martial arts his entire life. Alex Bahia is a guy who's been training mixed martial arts for 5 years, right? And I think there are levels to this game. Now, I think the great equalizer is a left hook and ultra power. I think both of these guys have it. But if I'm going to say who poses the bigger problems, both guys pose problems. There's no doubt about that. Absolutely. They pose major problems.
Absolutely.
Now, would the leg kick of Bahia equal out anything? I don't know, right? But I'm just saying, like, if this got down to a ground, like the worst thing that I would want to see happen is Jon Jones go take Alex Bahia down in the first 30 seconds of a fight.
Yeah.
Exactly. If that were to happen against Aspinall, we're still fighting.
100%. Yep, I'm with you on that. 100%. All right, so you're adding a name though.
Well, so that's just how I feel on those two. Now I want to add something from a marquee standpoint and from a spectacle standpoint. And Dana White said this would be the biggest fight in the history of the UFC, in the history of combat sports. Blah 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 blah. But if that will never happen. But if Francis Ngannou's name was still in there, what would be the biggest fight? Now, because I say a year ago, Francis Ngannou, it would have been the biggest fight to make. It would have broken all the records. It would have done everything that we're saying Tom Aspinall and or Alex Bahia would do. But I'm talking present day. Has the Anthony Joshua knockout diminished him too much? Has going to another brand, being out of the limelight, and doing virtually no pay-per-view sales for his super fight, Francis Ngannou, would that still be the fight to make if he could, would some way that wouldn't happen, be back in the UFC fold?
That is an interesting question, right? Because you lay out the reasons you would say no, right? I mean, everything you talked about right there is things that have impacted the Francis Ngannou brand, but he's still Francis Ngannou, and he still has the history in the UFC. And I think if now, as you said, Dana White has said we're not interested in doing business with Francis Ngannou anymore, so likely not going to happen. But hey, crazier things have happened, especially when it's in the line of business and it's going to help everybody involved financially. Sometimes you find a way to get over personal feelings. So if he were back in the fold and you're sitting in the war room, you're there at UFC headquarters, and you're like, guys, here's what we got in front of us:
A, B, or C.
That's it. Yeah, we got Jon Jones in front of us ready to fight. Tom Aspinall, Alex Bahia, and Francis Ngannou have all said we're in. We've all got the financial terms agreed, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's A, B, or C. Is he in the running? Who do you pick? That's interesting because Francis Ngannou didn't sell a lot of pay-per-views with the PFL, but the PFL brand it's just not as close as the UFC as they'd like it to be. I mean, it's just not.
But that means that the Ngannou brand isn't as big as we thought it was. I think, listen, I listen to Ariel Helwani a lot. I watch his show a lot. I follow his tweets, right? He's got tremendous insight. He knows everybody. He does everything. But if you were to listen to Ariel Helwani, Francis Ngannou is the biggest thing that's ever happened to MMA. And then it didn't translate.
Yep.
And I don't think necessarily Ariel Helwani was wrong. I think we're discounting how big the UFC really is and what that really matters. Is it better for your brand to take slightly less and stay, or as Dana White would say, he would have made more anyways staying with us, or to go out and do your own thing and become your own man and not be held under the banner and under the rules and the stipulations and the exclusivity? I still think, that's a long way of me saying, I think at present day, it's still A or B and not C, Francis Ngannou.
I tend to agree with you. I do think that it would obviously have more success. Francis would obviously have more success in selling pay-per-views if he's under the UFC banner. It just would, right? But I'm thinking about it right now. And what do we talk about? What brings it to that next level is the casual fan interest. And I just don't know that he has the casual fan interest right now. I think right now, you could maybe argue that Francis Ngannou would be a bigger star than Tom Aspinall. But I don't think you could argue that he's a bigger star than Alex Bahia.
But what if he ran into Tom Aspinall? Now we're getting to a bunch of ifs. What if he had run into Tom Aspinall waiting? But this poses the question. if you were to take Jon Jones out of the UFC and put him into that Francis Ngannou role in the PFL, say Francis Ngannou there, would he have done more than 27,000 pay-per-view buys? I don't know what it was. I just said that.
I don't know. I mean, I think so, but the UFC brand means a lot. You know what I mean? And it's the depth of what they bring to the table. You know what I mean? They can stack a pay-per-view with, you're not just trying to build it around one fight. You're building it around multiple fights people want to see and multiple names that people know, which is most important. And the UFC brand, it goes a long way, man. Those three letters have a lot of power in them, man. And the casual fan just knows that's what they're going to watch. So I think Jon Jones would be more successful on his own than Francis Ngannou with pay-per-view buys, but I don't know that it would be, multiple times worth.
I'm getting down a rabbit hole now, right? Just seeing what the marketability and branding would be now. Let's just hypothetically say, do you know what the exact numbers were or close to on that his super fight?
I'm trying to remember now offhand, though. I think it was around like 20,000 or something along those lines.
Yeah, I heard or read 27,000. I don't know why it's sticking in my head. Could be completely wrong. I don't know how that came into my head.
Right.
Do you think that if you sold, because what was it, $49.99 too? It was a little cheaper price point.
I think so.
Do you think if you were to sell a Dana White Contender Series at $49.99 and market it kind of like the way that PFL did, do you think you would get more buyers for a Dana White Contender Series? Because now we're going off of people really don't know, but you have the machine behind it. I'm just curious.
I think
it
so,
would,
because
I do.
Think it would. I
do.
I might be surprised. I mean, obviously you got the Dana White name behind it, and you would have all the social media that comes along with that, and all the attention. And what if he's going around and doing the media run-ins with ESPN and everybody? You know what I mean? So maybe, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the names that people don't know, and I think that's why I would lean no. But I might be surprised if that happened and they ran that experiment, because, as you said, the brand power is definitely there.
Okay, so all right. I did not expect this to take us 25 minutes to get to something that we don't even know what's going to happen yet. But again, that was low-hanging fruit. We'd want to see either or. I guess that's a long way of saying, like, I don't care. I want to see them both, and it doesn't matter.
Bring them all. We got to see.
Where did we end up on that, by the way?
I don't know that we did. You know what? I guess. You know what? All right. Let's say we get one more Jon Jones fight, and it's us. It's me. If we get one more Jon Jones fight, and that's it, he says, guys, I thought about walking away. I'm coming back. I'm doing one more, but that's it. Who do you take? You got those three on the table. I think you laid it out earlier. Who are we? We're hardcore fans. I would say if I only get one more, I want Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. If I only get one of the three, that's the one I want, because of what it means, because of, again, the spectacle. But I don't care. I don't care what the pay-per-view buys are. That doesn't impact me financially, so I don't care. I'm not trying to run a business. If it's just me, John Morgan,
for me financially.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall. If I only get one more fight, that's the one I want to see.
I think I'm on that. If you would have asked me a month ago, before I really started breaking down what it would really mean, I would have said Alex Bahia, but now I agree. Tom Aspinall. All right. So now let's go on. You led with the first one. I'm going to lead with what I want to see next. It's low-hanging fruit. And truth be told, I'm surprised it didn't get announced. I'm surprised Sean Strickland got this spot. I'm not saying it's not undeserved. I love some Sean Strickland. We know this. I've talked about it on this, but I'm just surprised after what Chimaev did to Robert Whittaker, and you have DDP, who just choked out Israel Adesanya, and truth be told, was winning the fight that night. It was very close, but he was winning for the most part, even before the submission. Chimaev, Dricus Du Plessis, I've got to see it. I still do not think that Dricus gets the mainstream respect that he deserves. All this guy has done is go out and starch legend in their prime after legend in their prime. And he still doesn't get the respect that he deserves. I want to see DDP, Chimaev. That is one of the highest fights that I want to see. And I'm shocked that it didn't get announced right off of Chimaev, misplaced all of Whittaker's teeth with that short choke. I'm sure they could have threw a bag and say, hey, Strickland, we're going to give you a little bit of this money just to wait around. We got to do this one. And I'm surprised that didn't happen. But that's the fight I want to see.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. That's right here at number 2 on my list. As I said, we kind of started out with, hey, let's talk about some fights that could happen, that aren't lined up, but that could happen. And this seems like one that very much could happen next year. But I like what you said, because my notes were simply this. I said, look, it's time. No disrespect to Sean Strickland. No disrespect to Israel Adesanya. No disrespect to Robert Whittaker. Those names that are phenomenal fighters that have done incredible things in their career. They're all great names. But this is, Khamzat Chimaev has been kind of building, and he's had these delays and he's had these issues. I think it's time. I feel like it's time, and I feel like he got a little bit of that mojo back, a little bit of that excitement back, and I'm with you. I think Dricus Du Plessis is an incredibly underrated UFC champion. I think it's just like a hater vibe around him or whatever, that people just
he's got too many great intangibles. Good looking, built like a brick shithouse, talks crap with the best of them. Like, he's got every great intangible that we want and don't have.
So at that point, you just be like, yeah, he sucks. Like, he does. He's got that guy. So I think there's a lot of disrespect. But yeah, to me, if I can make one fight at 185 pounds right now, it's Dricus Du Plessis putting his title on the line against Khamzat Chimaev. And, look, as you said, and Sean Strickland is great, man. The personality that he brings to the table is unbelievable. The fan base that he's built for himself is incredible, man. The type of attention he commands around the world is amazing. Just the story of his life, everything is great. Whether you agree with his politics or not, that's your decision. But I think he's a great character and a phenomenal fighter.
Or his outlook on life in general.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm telling you what, man, Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, that gets me excited. That's where the hands start coming together like they're doing right now. Just start going, let me think about this one. And while I guess maybe because it's a fresh matchup, maybe because of the style that he brings to the table, I'm more excited about that than the idea of this rematch with Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis. I understand why the UFC put it together. I understand, Sean had earned it and all those things. I'm not upset that the fight is happening. But again, we're putting a list together, our wish list. And if you tell me, John, Dricus Du Plessis, due to some intangibles this year, only gets to fight one time, who do you want him putting his title on the line against? That's Khamzat Chimaev.
Right. And, and don't get me wrong. I'm screaming Sean Strickland from the rooftops about how big of a fan I am, because I think in 90% of the craziness that he says, there's a 10% of truth that you really need to think about. And I love how he will engage you. He's a lot smarter than, he's batshit crazy too, but he's a lot smarter than, people give him credit for, because he does engage in thought. And I like that. And I like that Dana White gives him the opportunity to say that. But the guy's a hell of a fighter, man. He's got cardio for days. He's got this Philly shell and awkwardness straight up. It's like, it defies logic. He's a straight up and down Philly shell, cross-checking from the waist down below. He's an anomaly. But so he absolutely deserves it. He arguably beat Dricus that first fight, arguably. But when I'm saying, just when you say Chimaev and Dricus, it makes me start thinking, when was last time Dricus was taken down? And I may just be spacing it, but tell me.
He's shown himself to be a lot more capable in takedown defense and grappling savvy than people would give
I've
credit
seen
for.
him take people down, but when was he taken down? That's the question I want to know. And I'm sure a quick little, Sherdog Fight Finder, I can look at fights and be like, oh yeah, I remember. But off the top of your head, can you think about the last time
you don't think about him? Honestly, no, it doesn't jump out at you. It's like, come on, man, remember that when he was struggling there? Again, hadn't thought about it, but nothing jumps out in my brain right now.
That gets me intrigued.
I love it. That's the fight I want to see. And again, look, Sean Strickland could put a wrinkle in all this and break it all up. And maybe he won the first time around. You know what I mean? So it's like we'll see what's going on with this fight and how it plays out. But if he defends, I hope the next fight that's announced is Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev.
All right, so I guess that is going to be in just a kind of our low hanging fruit area. Yep. You got anything else that's just low hanging fruit?
I kind of, this is where so those were the two that to me that were just, I mean, Jon Jones, Khamzat Chimaev, come on, these are just names that we want to see fight. And they're fights that I thought should have been made that haven't been made yet. So those were easy. Then this is where I started to depart a little bit. And again, not completely out of the realm of possibility, but I started looking around on the landscape. All right, I'm looking at the UFC roster. Who do I want to play with and who do I want to match up with? Okay. And then I start thinking, all right, well, who else is out there? What are some big splashes that could be made, right? And again, I'm not trying to get crazy. Let's try to get somewhat realistic. I don't want to, hey, man, what if they brought in Mike Tyson or something? Come on, man, let's be realistic, right? So I look out there on the landscape and I see a Bellator legend in the name of Patricio Pitbull Freire, who has been taken to social media saying, let me out of my contract. I appreciate what you guys did for me, but I'm ready to go. I want to go to the UFC. I want this. So he's out there saying, I want out. So don't know whether that happened or not. PFL Bellator, they got a lot of announcements coming up that they're making, so we'll see. But should he get loose, 30-fight Bellator veteran, face of the organization, he comes over. Now, the immediate thing might be, well, Bellator featherweight champion, let's bring him in, and let's put him up against the UFC champion, Ilia Topuria. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is my wish list, and I'm putting it together. And I said, we bring Pitbull over, and we put him against Max Holloway. Max Holloway, Patricio Pitbull, to me, 30-fight Bellator veteran, 30-fight UFC veteran, both of them exciting, both of them finishers. I mean, to me, stylistically, that is entertaining as hell. And at that point, if Patricio Pitbull beats Max Holloway, then absolutely he has proven to you that he deserves to fight Ilia Topuria. Not that you couldn't do that now, but I like the idea of putting up against a legend like Max Holloway and showing that, yes, I'm championship caliber and I deserve to fight for the UFC title as well. And even if it's, doesn't go his way, I just think it's a hell of a fight. So that's the one on the list for me. A little bit out of the norm, but totally possible and happening. Patricio Pitbull versus Max Holloway.
I'm torn on even the fight that would be, though. Right? The Pitbull brothers, they knock people out. They got hands of stone. They got this, that, and the other, but they also are very laid back fighters, right? Max Holloway's kind of a counterpuncher as well. I'm thinking about from a stylistic, but would I pay to see that fight? Hell yeah. I'm going to throw out another name for Max Holloway.
Okay.
That is on my list. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. And I think it needs to happen at some point, whether it's this next fight for this person or not. Now, I'm taking Max up to 55.
Okay.
Now, this is not immediately going to happen, but if you were to say, Eric, fantasy book this fight, this card, or this lightweight matchup for me.
I'm looking at the lightweight. I'm looking at the ranked. I'm trying to figure out where you're going with it. Let's hear it.
Max Holloway is a BMF, right?
Right.
I firmly believe outside of, early in his career and outside of maybe one fight that I saw maybe him give up a little bit, I'm still perplexed how he lost to Islam. But I would say Charles Oliveira is a BMF or two now. And if I put Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira together, I got goosebumps just thinking about what a fight that could be. Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, they are built the same. I mean, they are literally, if you put their frames up next to each other, they look like the same person. I think that fight would be absolutely spectacular.
That is a phenomenal fight. Charles Oliveira, and it kind of leans into what you were saying in styles making fights. And Charles Oliveira, his style makes every single fight exciting no matter what. So absolutely unbelievable. That is a fight that absolutely should happen. I love it. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That would be a great one to bring over.
And I believe it's 1 in 5 in the rankings right now, right? So it's Correct. not like, let's just say Charles Oliveira, Islam beats Arman, Charles then loses. That's the next matchup.
I love it. That's
the next matchup.
Fight.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that fight.
Stylistically,
Charles Oliveira is so fun to watch fight. He is so damn fun. He's almost this long-rangey fighter who doesn't use his length and gets right into people's faces. And he's spectacular. I mean, what he did to Michael Chandler, the beating that he put on Michael Chandler was crazy. Yeah, I know Michael Chandler, he had this spectacular 5th round comes out doing some crazy stuff. But the pure beating that he put on Michael Chandler in that fight, we don't see anybody do that to Michael Chandler.
We don't. It's funny. I'm just sitting here thinking about the career of Charles Oliveira because he's another one that is a superstar that I just don't think people saw coming, right? Like when this kid came to the UFC, he was like a teenager, maybe like 20 years old. I mean, he was very young when he came into the UFC, and he had some success. But then he had those long struggles, right? Now he was facing elite level competition, no doubt about it. But he had some losses along the way, and he did have a tendency. I mean, that was the rap on him, right? That he had a tendency to kind of quit in fights, right? That you could kind of break him mentally. And that just seems to be, I mean, that's not even part of the discussion anymore, right? I mean, this dude is as dangerous as it gets. Another guy that, barely speaks English, but has just commanded attention from the fans because of his fighting style, the way he goes out there and he throws down. If Charles Oliveira's on the card, you're getting a badass fight, right? I mean, he ascended all the way to the top. He's got an incredible set of teeth on him as well that commands attention. You know what I mean? And yeah, unbelievable. I mean, anytime you put that guy on a card, it was funny. It was kind of I wonder. You think it's got to be right? Hall of Fame one day. He's in the UFC Hall of Fame one day, right?
Oliveira?
Yeah.
Got
to be right. I mean, even though listen,
he has beaten Gaethje, he's beaten Poirier. You beat those two guys back to back. Oh, let's say put Michael Chandler in there twice.
Yeah. Yep.
You rip every ligament from Tony Ferguson's knee while holding the championship of the world. I just gave you a 4-fight stretch that guy had to go on before going up against Islam, and I still to this day don't understand how Islam ran through him that easily.
Yeah.
I think he almost reverted back for one night only. Who knows? Jet lag, whatever, Abu Dhabi, wherever it was. It was way over there. I don't know how that fight played out that way, but I just gave you 4-fight streak that guy went through when he was the lightweight champion of the world. He is absolutely a Hall of Famer. Absolutely.
I agree with you now, and I'd like to see him in there. So let me ask you. So all right, you kind of took Max Holloway away from me. Because he's Mike Jones. Do you like the idea of Pitbull coming over? I mean, he said he wants to come to the UFC. Do you want to see him in the UFC? And if so, I mean, would you go straight to Poirier, or do you go maybe Volkanovski?
I don't want to see him in the UFC.
Really?
Right? I think that, listen, if you were to say 5 years ago, Pitbull, bring over the Pitbull brothers. Hell yeah. Right? I want to keep, those guys built those brands.
It's true.
They built those brands. I don't want it. When all these Pride guys came over and it's they really weren't what we thought they were. Now, I'm not saying that would happen to Pitbull because I don't necessarily think it is, but I think on the tail end of a career, he's obviously wanting activity and paydays. Why, when he's sitting inactive, he's not getting paid. But if those things weren't there, you staying at Bellator, PFL, you built that. You built that house.
Yeah.
I want to see him active and stay there.
That's the key. They just got to get him active. And for what it's worth, by the way, the calendar will change soon. I've put in an interview request with PFL as well, just to kind of get an idea of where they're going. And we've heard some rumblings of some frustrations. Obviously, there were some canceled events. We know, and we've talked about. It seems like the Bellator brand is pretty much gone at this point. But it will live on in a different format. And I've heard they've got some big things on the horizon. I've heard there's some changes in store for PFL. They've got some announcements coming up real soon. So hopefully we can share details of that very soon. And you're right. If they can keep them happy and they can keep them active, as you said, and financially, it's a similar offer, maybe even better to stay where you're at. Yeah, at 37 years old and 30 fights under the banner, maybe it's better you just kind of stay there. Although, if they were going to bring him in and give him a UFC title fight right away, you'd have a hard time turning that down. I don't know that they would do that, but it's be interesting.
Well, and I think just from a bravado standpoint, they would never do it anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree with you there.
All right, so let's move on.
You want to go next? Is it your turn? My turn? I don't know.
I think we're kind of almost on the same page without even consulting prior to. So you just keep going. Keep going.
All right. So next up, again, we're putting together fighters that I want to see fight, and who my favorites are. You know who I want to see active. Kayla Harrison is on my list of athletes that I love watching compete. I love the spirit, the attitude that she has. I love the skills. I love the intensity. And again,
and the shit talking.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And, and so we've got Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena coming up at some point this year, which is going to be phenomenal. The build up to that is going to be incredible because Juliana Pena has all those same aspects as well, right? So that's going to be fun. So, but again, we wanted to think outside the box. We wanted to talk about some fights different than what's likely to get lined up next. And
could that headline really quick? Could that headline a pay-per-view? Because Pena and Nunez did. I just don't know right now if that could headline a pay-per-view.
It's tough because Kayla's still pretty new, right. and I think Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes headlined on the strength of Amanda Nunes and what she had built. So I think it's likely a co-main. I mean, I wouldn't hate it as a main event as far as the build up to it. As far as handling the stage on a press conference and getting all the headlines and the build up with trash talk, like they'd get it. You know what I mean? So they'd be able to build the interest. But I think it's most likely a co-main event, to be honest with you. So,
so I digress. I'm sorry, I got you off track.
No, that's okay. So I want to see Kayla Harrison. Now I'm going to go that she beats Juliana Pena. And no disrespect to Juliana Pena, but I'm going to assume that at this point Kayla Harrison is the reigning champion. And I want to see. I've got another and/or scenario, both that are a little bit likely, and they're the obvious ones, even though they're most unlikely. But it's Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg. I want Amanda Nunes retired, but obviously Kayla Harrison's 34. Amanda Nunes is only 36, right? So I mean, she's retired, but she retired early, to be honest with you. Now she understandably so. She's got money in the bank. I think she was kind of feeling like she didn't really have any tests out there. She had proven herself as the GOAT, you know what I mean? She's either 1A or 1B at worst, you know what I mean? So Amanda Nunes, former teammates, a fight that, Kayla was asked about all the time, and Kayla was always so respectful, you know what I mean? She would just say, hey, I'm just hoping to be where she is one day. If we fight someday down the line, I promise it'll be a respectful situation. I just want to be where she is as a competitor. I have no ill will towards her. I just want to be where she is as the greatest of all time. Now, Amanda's kind of shot back. Yeah, Amanda's kind of shot back a little bit and has not felt quite as kind about those. So what didn't start as a rivalry and wasn't made a fake rivalry became a real rivalry. And you're talking about two of the greatest to ever do it. So I would love to see that. And then I throw Chris Cyborg in there as well, because if you're talking about the greatest of all time, you're talking about Nana Nunes, you're talking about Chris Cyborg. Now, with Chris Cyborg, it is, you got to point out she's under another banner right now. She is 39 years old. Although she's always kept herself in phenomenal condition and the power that she brings to the table certainly doesn't seem to be going away. She's fighting a little bit smarter right now. But if I only had one of those, I'd like to see them both, to be honest with you, because I do believe Kayla Harrison is slowly making her way to being one of the greatest of all time as well. And if she could take both of them out, my gosh, what a statement that would be. But if I can only see one, it's Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. That to me is the biggest women's fight you can make right now, because of their skills, and then you add in the backstory as well. And again, not a manufactured backstory, not a hype job, real, true, kind of rumbling, simmering rivalry that built underneath the surface. I want to see Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes.
I like that. I want to see it too. I want to see Kayla Harrison all pissed off fight week and on the build-up. I want to see her all pissed off, cutting all that weight, talking about this girl that she always was respectful to until the girl retired, and then she started saying her name. I want to see that Kayla Harrison. I want to see her manager chirping in the background, giving his own interviews. Ali. Oh, I know he will. That's why I want to see it. I don't know whether I'd want to see the actual fight or the build-up more.
I'm telling you, it would be intense. There's no question about it. So that's a fight that, it seems to me that the UFC is leaning that direction. I think maybe part of the reason Amanda walked away was maybe to save her body a little bit for that opportunity. You know what I mean? To know that she was taking some damage along the way. I know Amanda Nunes is retired, but you kind of see anytime it gets brought up to Dana White, you kind of see that little twinkle in his eye. It's that kind of like, right.
I know something you don't.
Yeah. Is that a fight people might want to see? Okay, I'll take that under advisement. Did she did say something about it? Okay, interesting. You know what I mean? So it feels like we're leaning that direction. Now, again, similar to what we talked about earlier with Sean Strickland can certainly come in and play spoiler. Juliana Pena can come in and play spoiler. You know what I mean? She can. She's dangerous. She doesn't quit, man, especially if this thing goes late. When you think about Kayla Harrison.
When that fight gets into 3, 4, 5, it's a different fight.
Totally different fight, right? And we'll have time to break that down when it gets booked sometime this summer. or maybe in the spring. But yeah,
I think it's very easily to say that Kayla Harrison was going to run through. I think it's a very easy thing to say. And then I think it's a logical thing to say that, hey, there was this Pacheco girl over here that drugged Kayla into deep water. Now, I know we're different fighters, different time, but I'm just saying.
I'm telling you, and you're talking about the added weight cut that, Kayla said is not easy. I mean, she does it because she's a professional, but she says it's not fun. It's not easy. How does the body react in 3, 4, 5? So look, Kayla early on, we've seen the power. We've seen the skills that she has. We know what she brings to the table. She could in that fight in a round, easily could. But Juliana Pena does not quit ever. I mean, she has been through some horrific things in her life. She has proven her character both inside and outside of the cage. And, I think physically it's a tough matchup for her. Skill-wise, I mean, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. I mean, they don't make athletes much better than that. So it's a tough matchup. But as far as let's just talk about the heart and the will, it matches up perfectly. You know what I mean? So could get interesting late. But if Kayla gets through Juliana Pena, get me Amanda Nunes. Let's get her out of retirement. Let's make this super fight. And I think that's one to look forward to.
I like it. Okay, I'm going to give you one. I've never heard it talked about. I think based off this last guy's performance, you'd have to be a nut job not to want to see this fight.
All right.
Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Roundtree Jr.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that fight a lot. You're right. I haven't heard a lot about it, but I think that's just because obviously there's been some healing to be done and there's some other things going on in the division right now.
But I also think from a standpoint of we knew about Khalil Roundtree Jr. I even picked him. I actually even in side chat messages I think Khalil is going to pull off the upset tonight.
Yep,
I didn't say that publicly. I said it to you in text messages.
Yep.
I think he showed that he is at that level. He just went up against a special guy. I've known how good this guy is. I've seen him up close. Hits like a truck. He's athletic. Yuri Prochazka is a different animal as well. That fight to me, I think people now have the respect that respect Khalil Roundtree Jr., where I just don't think the common fan did prior.
I agree.
Now, with that being said, dude, that's a fight night pay-per-view, or that's a fight night main event.
Easy.
Next time they're in Tampa, next time they're in Houston, it's not a pay-per-view. That is also a main pay-per-view. That's a MSG pay-per-view main card opening fight.
100%.
And the opening fight is always the fans' main event.
Yeah, and you know what? You might have just made a fight that's going to happen too, because you know what? The other thing that's real beneficial about that fight is that it doesn't eliminate another potential title challenger, right? They're both coming off title losses, right? So what I'm saying is, let's say you got somebody coming up, like let's say maybe a Carlos Ulberg or something like that that's on the rise. It's kind of the next one out there, or maybe even if Ankalaev doesn't get the title shot next, right? We've heard Pereira say it's not Ankalaev next. We'll see.
That's crazy.
Just crazy with it, right? I mean, just so crazy. But so let's say you put Prochazka versus Ankalaev or Khalil against Ankalaev and they beat him. Well, it's like you're not going to put them against Pereira next. They just both fought Pereira. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to ruin a potential another title challenger. Those guys aren't getting title fights in their next fight. They're high level. The way their styles come together would be incredible. And just logically, from a matchmaking perspective and an overall management of the light heavyweight division, it makes sense. So to be honest with you, I had not thought about that fight. But as soon as you said it, I like it. And now that I think about it on a higher level into the overall implications, not only do I like it stylistically, but logically, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think you might have just booked a fight right there.
I love it. I'm going to name off a couple ones. We don't even need to talk about it. I think this could be the boringest fight in the history of the game, but it'd be very interesting on what would happen in this fight. I'd love to see Leon Edwards and Ian Garry.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, you're right. It might not be the most exciting fight, but in terms of where they are in their careers, especially, man, a European main event, whether it be a fight night or maybe a featured bout on.
But they're just both laid back counter strikers. I mean, I think that they're not going to die for takedowns. Like, who's going to throw first? Neither. Yeah. I'm just curious to see how that fight would go.
It wouldn't be an early fight of the night, one that you'd be excited. But I like it. I like it for what it means in their career, especially put those two in a bout in Europe. I know Ian Garry said he doesn't want to fight in Europe unless it's in Dublin. So I mean, maybe they do a fight night in Dublin. I don't know, but man, I think that I like that. I like where your head's at on that one.
Here's a fight that gets O'Malley back to the title shot. This is his fight. This is the fight I want to see in his first fight back. It makes sense in the rankings. O'Malley rematch with Petr Yan.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love that. I think that's a great fight stylistically. I think, like you said, it's got everything that it needs on it. I love that fight. I do.
A lot of people say that Petr Yan was robbed.
Yep.
I think it's his way to do it. It's a way for O'Malley to solidify. It was an amazing fight the first time. And I will watch those two scrap 10 out of 10s. Petr Yan is built different. The guy is tough as nails. His mind is impenetrable. He's going to go out there to try and kill you.
Yep.
And O'Malley is O'Malley. He is unreal.
I dig that one. All right, let me throw one out there for you. You got any other ones you want to rain out, or you got a few more?
And then I got one that just won't happen that I really want to see. But go.
All right, well, I'll give you one that is not going to happen. But I was looking for some. Now, there's a name that didn't come up that I'm surprised, because we're talking about fighters that we want to see fight, matches that we want to put together. And I didn't hear anything lined up for Justin Gaethje, right? And maybe there was nothing lined up for Justin Gaethje because the dude has literally fought everybody, because that's who he is, right? Anybody, anywhere,
put him on this list, truth be told. I almost put him on the list saying, I want to watch him and Dustin Poirier again.
Oh, I mean, who wouldn't? Come on, let's just have them fight 10 times. You know what I mean? Like, you could just... that's a pay-per-view headliner every single time. You want to sign up for it. So I love that. So I think that's probably one reason he didn't show, because there's not a lot of matchups that he hasn't taken already, because he fights everybody and anybody. He's been at a high level for so long. But I did have to include Justin Gaethje somewhere, right? I mean, he's the highlight. You want to see something. So I said, you know what? Maybe Justin Gaethje is getting a little tired of cutting weight. Maybe this 155 division is just not doing it for him anymore. There's no new names. There's nothing fresh there for him. There's nothing that really excites him. Maybe he wants to move up to 170 pounds and he wants to fight Joaquin Buckley. How about that? Justin Gaethje, Joaquin Buckley at 170 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Come on. that was a little out there. And I know Joaquin Buckley is in title contention. But I mean, even if you're Joaquin Buckley and you're like, man, I can either face.
That's Justin freaking Gaethje. You take that fight.
That's what I'm saying. Even if they're like, hey, Joaquin, we've got Sean Brady, we've got Jack Della Maddalena, we've got Kamaru Usman, we've got Shavkat Rakhmonov, we've got Leon Edwards. That was 5-1 right there. I just named all those. You can have any of them. Or, man, we just heard Justin Gaethje wants to come up to 170, and we got him as well. He's not ranked. He's not ranked at 170. He's ranked number 3 at 155. So, I mean, it's not like he's a scrub, and we know the style.
And we're going to put you as the co-main event on a pay-per-view against Justin Gaethje.
You take that fight, right? Who doesn't take the opportunity to fight Justin Gaethje? And I think that would be insane.
And I think those styles would be amazing.
100%.
Car crash is what comes to mind.
100%, man. 100%. So that's my little out there, but I think it'd be fun.
I don't think it's that out there, truth be told. Because I bet you Justin Gaethje's all in it for fun fights now, right?
Hell yeah. That's it. So tell your elf to jump on a plane to Las Vegas.
Zippy, say his name. Zippy.
Get Zippy on a plane. Or
remember his name. I don't know if I'm leading you into the next fighter that I have a matchup for right now. But I want to see this will not happen. But if it did, this is a fight that would, I think, technically speaking, would be one for the ages. Islam has always said he wants to go up and get another title against his teammate or partial teammate or cross-training partner, whoever it is, but Belal Muhammad.
Wow. That'd be
we
a good
heard
fight.
a lot of Islam wanting to go up when it was Leon Edwards at the top of the ticket.
Yep.
Don't hear it too much with Belal. Now they do train together. They're Muslim brothers. They have all that in common. That fight ain't happening. It's not gonna. But imagine if it did. It's happened a bunch in the training room.
I was going to say it's happened a whole lot in the gym. We just haven't been privy to it. Let me pay some money and watch that. Yeah, you're right. I think I don't think they do it. You know what I mean? And I understand why. I think they feel a little too close. And obviously, they're all under the tutelage of Khabib and, all those connections. But it would be a hell of a fight, man. Stylistically, there's just the well-roundedness, the durability, what they bring to the table. It'd be a hell of a fight, man. It really would.
Man, that's what I got. So, man, this was fun. We need to do this more often. Let's just throw everything out the window and just see what fights we want to see, because I think we want to see Jon Jones versus either or. But I think we both say now that Aspinall is the fight to make. It's the fight to make.
Yeah.
Screw those commoners. Screw the commoners. Tom Aspinall is the guy to make. DDP and Khamzat Chimaev. That is definitely the fight to make. Don't know why we didn't see it yet, but Sean Strickland is deserving. But the UFC's kind of done their own thing at times anyway. So that's why I'm just shocked. Man, Max versus whoever. I guess that was on the list.
Yep. Some big fights, man. 2025, there's going to be some big fights, man. We had some great ones this year. I think it's going to be another big year of big fights, man. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see what's on the calendar. It'll all start being revealed to us very soon.
It will. Well, with that being said, I don't have the dates in front of me. I think we're going to try and get in one more, maybe our year in review. Hopefully the calendars line up for us. Stay tuned for the next episode. But from me here at Grind City Media, I want to wish everybody out there a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. John, I know you got to be going Philly this weekend?
Yeah, Philadelphia. So, it's no big MMA events this weekend, but there is some submission grappling with some fun, recognizable names on there. Fury Professional Grappling 12, myself and Jay Regalbuto will be on the call. Gina Lucille is there as reporter as well. But Sean Brady versus Richie Boogeyman Martinez in the main event. That should be a lot of fun. Andre Petrosky and Pat Downey is our co-main event.
That one. Jason Letterfine told me about that.
Bro, those two dudes are going to go at it.
And if you guys don't know who Pat Downey is, right? He had I guess, is he still an MMA fighter? I don't know. But, yeah, he just went to IBJJF Worlds last week. Now he is claiming to be a blue belt, but he smashes through the blue belt division, chokes everybody out, and then gets into a fight. Right,
he gets into a fight, and if you don't think Andre Petrosky will swing back if things get a little bit chippy, so those are two big dudes who are going to go out. So that's a great co-main event. But man, there's a ton of names on there. Joe Pfeiffer is on there. Pat Sabatini is on there. Bella Mir is on there. Frank Mir's daughter, a late addition to it. She'll be grappling as well against Gabby Best. So some very, very fun matchups that we got lined up for you as always. It's just fun. Like, it's a laid back year in party, right? Where I don't have the suit and tie on for that one. I'll be rocking a hoodie, maybe having a little frosty beverage there as we call the action. And it's just a fun vibe. It's a fun way to end the year. We've been doing it the last couple of years with CFFC, and it's another fun lineup we put together. So Saturday night, UFC Fight Pass, 8 p.m. Eastern. Check that out to get a little bit of your combat sports action in.
I will tune in.
And you know what? Let me tease one more thing that's coming up as well. Robin Black, I spoke with him about Dark Side of the Cage. It's coming up on Vice. I just want to tease that out there. The interview will be up on Grind City Media, so look for that as well, because he gives a great behind-the-scenes look at this new series that's coming out. I know if anybody's seen that teaser, it looks like it's going to be incredible.
They got to tell the Lee Murray story, right?
I don't think that's on their initial list, but probably only because by the way, if you've never seen Lightning that's on Showtime, if you want to see a deep dive, and I didn't talk to him about the Lee Murray situation, but the only reason I think they might not have is that Showtime did a phenomenal job with a multi-part breakdown of the Lee Murray.
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's great. It's worth it. Google Lightning, I believe is the name of it. It was on Showtime. It's a multi-part series. If you can find it anywhere, I'll help you find it. It's a phenomenal series, a deep dive. But this series looks great, and Robin gives you a really good preview of it. We'll have that interview up later as well on Grind City Media. But he talks about some of the behind the scenes of it. And Robin and I are both alike in that neither one of us are really like pro wrestling guys, so to speak. But even as a non-pro wrestling guy, I think I've seen every episode of Dark Side of the Ring because it's just so good. It's a phenomenal series, and this looks like it'll be good too. So I just want to tease that as well. Since we got this kind of lull in action, some other stuff to watch out for. And then look, that debuts the first week of January, but you can check out the interview and get more of a preview of it coming up on Grind City Media as well.
Man, I'm pumped for that. I wonder if it's going to be everything I already knew or if I'm going to learn anything new, but really firsthand accounts is going to be awesome.
I can't wait. I think it's going to be good. I think, I asked Robbie about it.
Now, this might not be as controversial, but are the Diaz brothers featured in it at all?
Yes. They believe it is the quintessential sit down with Nick Diaz, and we talk about that and how they got it done and some of the behind the scenes of that. So yes, I
would love him and his brother go into the oh geez, I'm spacing his name, Joe Riggs situation.
They talked about exactly that, so they go into that for sure. Yep, they go into that.
When you hear Joe Riggs talk about it, it's hysterical.
Robin Black mentions the fact that he helped choreograph the reenactment of the famous hospital fight scene. If you're unfamiliar with it, they fought in the cage and then they fought again at the hospital.
Joe Riggs is like, I got attacked. I shit my pants.
It's amazing. So I think it's going to be some great stories. And yeah, so check out that interview. Robin does a great job of kind of giving some behind the scenes insight into how they approached it and what you can expect to see in the series. Because I'm excited for it.
I'm here for it. Well, with that being said, everybody, Merry Christmas. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.